Welcome, dear friends. Here we are for another study of the Medium's book. It's an honor and a pleasure to join a host group of scholars of Spiritism, where every week at 10 p.m. on Thursdays, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays, we come together to bring to you one of the chapters of the Medium's book. The Medium's book was published in 1861 by Allan Kardec, and it is our guide and our how-to mediumship for a safe and productive mediumship. If you know of anyone who is a medium, if you're a medium yourself, this is the second book of the collection of the main 5 books of the codification by Allan Kardec. Last week, we talked about moral influence of the medium. So we were talking about how, independent of how morally evolved someone is, they could be mediums. So we have mediums of greater qualities that are morally lacking, and we have we have mediums who are morally evolved and have good mediums capabilities. And they talk about how the more morally evolved we are, better spirits we attract, more likely we are of receiving communication of high elevated spirits versus when we dwell in conduct that is against God's law. That's what moral development is, right? Is when we go to the Spirit's book, part 3, the divine laws, first chapter, we learn the good is fulfilling God's law, and evil is when we deviate from it. So a lot of us on the world of trials and expiations have a lot to learn from the Spirit. So without further ado, what do you think, friends? Today, chapter 21, second part, is going to be about the mediums. The influence of the surroundings. So what do you think? Before we go through the context, how do you feel about knowing the surroundings? Let's ask us questions. Where are we? Who are we? We'll go back to the Spirit's book, question 100 to 116, which is the hierarchy of spirits. Talks about imperfect spirits, good spirits, and pure spirits. Characteristics of different classes of spirits. When we go and we meditate about who am I? Where is God putting me to live? Where was I born? Where do I live today? What is in my neighborhood? What am I here to do? What are my thoughts that predominate in my mind? What are the feelings that I have? What are the actions that I take? And all of that determines the environment we create for ourselves and for our families, for our communities, for our cities, states, country, and ultimately our Mother Earth as well. So let's talk about the influence of the surroundings and the communications and what kind of surroundings would allow you and I to have a better chance of communicating with the good spirits. So the first question on item 231 is, does the surroundings in which the mediums work exert any influence on the manifestation, the spirit manifestations? So what do you think the answer to that is? So here is an image from the book In the Realms of Mediumship by André Luiz through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier. Here, notice it's very common to have a table. It's just for comfort where you put your book, where you have a place for your hands to be, right? So if there's any issues with balance or blood pressure or something, there's safety on being seated on a chair versus standings. Then, of course, the table can be round, the table can be square. And here we have incarnate beings seated around the table. And you can also see spirits next to them, as well as the one incarnate being seated next to the table. So there's a main group of, if there's enough people, of mediums and spirit counselors who will be talking to the spirits. And the spirits that help that person. Each medium, as we know, has his or her spirit mentors. If we are good mediums and we know what we are doing, we are going to always ask of our spirit mentors for them to guide us through the process. And of course, we ask authorization. And what we're not seeing here yet is the surrounding collective mediums, spirits that are around this meeting. So here they chose to show us just the mentors of the meeting, right? They're being guided. You also notice this rays of light connecting the different mediums to the higher realms, because every mediumship meeting of serious nature has this connection of the higher realms. Nothing happened on our lives without authorization from the higher realms. And then there's a time, and they also show later on this book that 15 minutes before any meeting, we should be there. The door is closed, and then we focus on what's going on just for protection. It shows the whole host of work the behind the scenes, specifically for spiritist meetings, the hospital beds, the nursing staff, the physician staff, the auxiliary staff, and serious work that happens 24/7 for you and I. And the spirits will tell us, all the spirits who surround mediums help them either for good or for evil. When I asked you to think about what do you think the most, what do you feel the most, what do you do, and that includes social media, mainly these days. Are we always scrolling? Are we downloading the app for the Kardec Radio and listening? Are we following good spiritist groups online? Are we getting messages and reading messages such as happy life, so on and so forth, each and every day? So that allows us to enter into a frame of mind where our vibrational attunement is with good spirits. Even if I do all of that, but my sentiments are not positive, it's likely that I can be outwardly beautiful, I can be outwardly calm, I can be outwardly poised, but inside there's a sort of turmoil that the spirits around me are of the same nature. So are the spirits around you helping you for good or for evil? Even if you're not an ostensive medium that will sit at the table, you may be, and we all are mediums to a certain extent, because we feel the presence of the spirits around us, we talked about last time. And there will be a series of people, if there's enough, which are there to pray, to provide the spiritual fluids for the meeting, the vital fluids, right? Because why do we need mediumship meetings to begin with, right? If the spirits on the spiritual realm, the spirit mentors on the spiritual realm, why do we need to meet and have that interaction? Because some spirits are so entrenched in their physical sensations that are remaining from their lives, they don't even know they're dead. Some of them are choosing to stay with certain people to negatively influence them. That's what we call obsession. Other familiar spirits linger around us because they like us, but they're not necessarily positive. They don't have necessarily a positive actions in our lives. And then we have people who like to do the things that we do in the spiritual realm. So that collusion of a spirit who is unaware that he or she has discarnated with someone who is incarnated, who is more close to the flesh, who has the vital fluids to donate to that spirit, causes that shock. That might be the first time they considered, oh, I am dead, or oh, I may need to change the ways I'm pursuing this, and release that person from the negative influence. So those meetings are very important, and there are very few institutions, if any, that have this specific mission of this direct communication, these obsession meetings. And then there will be this, the importance of all of us in the spiritist movement to be thinking about how can I help in my spiritist group so that maybe I can be the auxiliary, the helpers, donating that vital fluid, praying for the people. Maybe there will pass givers after certain mediums receive certain spirits. There will be a request for passes, right? So we have a lot of good work that happens behind the scenes. All spirits will help us to good or evil. If you're a medium, we want to think about our actions so that more good spirits can be by our side. And then he will talk about, the spirits will tell us about frivolous and serious meetings. And then this topic here is about frivolous meetings, right? Meetings that are not serious, just for entertainment, defining things, to ask about things that are not in the realm of helping. Do higher order spirits attempt to bring frivolous meetings back to the field of more serious ideas? Let's say if we start a meeting, just a regular meeting, and then we start, all of a sudden it goes from spiritist to fashion to this to that. Sometimes we do bring things as case studies. Well, let's say if we derail our meetings and we talk about, oh, who's going to marry who, who's going to take that job, which are things that concern the physical life, right? Do higher order spirits trying to intervene? They're just there waiting, like we do with children, right? When there's a problem, parents go and intervene. They said higher order spirits do not attend meetings in which their presence would be futile. High order spirits are not angels sitting in clouds, eating grapes, and playing harps, which is the idea that I had growing up, right? You go to heaven, you just rest. High order spirits are busy helping others. So if they come to our meetings and they're frivolous, they're not going to be of help. So they'll go help somewhere else. Even if it's an institution that is not spiritist, but is doing more good than the spiritist meeting. Remember, there's spiritism and then there's spiritist movement. So if their presences would be futile, if they're going to come to talk to us and we're not listening, why would they waste their time? All you have to do is read the books of Andrea Luiz, The Messengers. Excuse me. Let's talk about Workers of Life Eternal. It's 1 week rescuing 5 people who are helping 5 people who are discarnating. That's 1 week, 1 whole book, friends. So there's a lot of work that goes on. And those spirits who are leading those helping groups, the messengers, the missionaries that come together, and each one goes to different houses and they spend the whole week helping this discarnation process, they're busy. Why would they go to a meeting where they're going to be heard? And it says, however, they do go to surroundings where there has been little instruction, but where there is true sincerity, even if they only find deficiency intermits. Let's say we have a nascent spiritist group. There's little instructions because we haven't studied more. Maybe someone who doesn't know much of spiritism have to build those courses and build a group. But if there's true sincerity and the mediums are there, we're not as trained and developed and educated in mediumship, then they might use us anyways. They might come and be like, hey, we see you, that you are sincere, so we are going to help you. And they come. They do not go to intellectual environments in which sarcasm reigns. Like if we are frivolous, we feel like, well, who are they? If we only talk about things that are not of importance of spiritual growth, and there's sarcasm, there's a lot of intellectual discussions that are not necessarily good, then they will not come to our aid because they have better things to do. Very understandable, right? Are lower order spirits forbidding from take part in serious meetings? That's the opposite. So we have a serious group. This is a continuation of a scene by this group. You can see the difference between the mediums on this one. You can see they have 1, 2, 3. This is probably a table in front of a greater group. So I wanted you to think about what a serious meeting would be. And we have here is a mentor, right, of that person. Could be a physician giving passes, but it could be someone who is a mentor of that person. We have a medium, and you can see the development of the mediumistic, the cone with the vital center that connects you with the higher realms, very developed. Let's look at the previous picture. Here, none of these have noted here. They will show up later because the spirits are layering on these books the knowledge, right? They're dissecting out. First, they're explaining, they're bringing another message as well. So in this one, they show this. And then, of course, when we have mediums like this, we want to talk to them. So they show the incarnate beings surrounding the table, coming talk to her. You see there's another table with the white cloth, which is just the way people decorated in the past. You don't have to have a white cloth. It can be a black cloth. It can be a blue cloth or whatever. It's just the way people wanted to make it pretty. right? And then here you have spirits around. Inside the light, imagine when you go into TSA, right? There are lines. There's a physical barrier, and you have to go through the snaking line. Here's the same. There is a ray of light forming this shield. It's the same as the do not cross line that the police put, but that's vibratorily created by the spirit mentors of the group, by the mediums themselves. We have a lot to contribute into our thoughts and feelings and cohesion and harmony between the groups. And then there are spirits who are allowed in the meeting, but they stay outside. And that's what the spirits are going to talk to us about. No, they don't take part of the meeting, but sometimes they're present at the meetings to take advantage of the teachings that we receive. But they're kept quiet like ignorant listeners during a meeting of scholars. Of course, if the spirits allowed serious meetings to be stopped by lower order spirits, we're not talking about spirits who are suffering, who are obsessors, who are going to be there to receive the disobsession treatment or give messages or talk to someone. We're talking about those who are actively trying to stop the meeting. And that's why we study. We study to understand what the meeting is about, who is there. We study to know that sometimes the spirits will come and tempt us and start talking about things that are not important and cut it. So we have to do there. So they stay there, but they are almost like mute. They're unable to speak. They're there to receive the teaching. Maybe they come with us, the incarnates who will receive the passes and the instruction, and they come to listen as well. Because when we learn, our spirit, what we call obsessors, sympathetic spirits, or familiar spirits, they all learn with us. They all grow with us. And if we grow and we can't be in attunement with them anymore, they may go elsewhere as well. So serious meetings are protected, are scheduled. They happen under the guidance of the spirit mentors. It's not about us, it's about them, right? So that's what's very important. And they will tell us spirits are everywhere. They are constantly around us, next to us. They watch and observe us. They interfere in our meetings. They follow us or avoid us, depending on whether we attract or repel them. Again, the surroundings that we create for ourselves. And I'm not just talking about the physical surroundings of cleanliness, organization, so on and so forth, but also the spiritual environment. Here are some examples from the realms of mediumship on your right column if you're watching this. Is there spirits chatting and sitting on a bench at night? How do I know it's night? There's a moon right in the picture. And here they are. Make it bigger. Here they are. And the spirits are chatting. In the background, it might be a little harder to see because it's small. There are other types of spirits. The spirits that are depicted as dancer. They usually on these pictures depict spirits who are higher order or working for the good in lighter clothing of the style of the 40s and 50s and 60s when these books were written, right? They mostly have ties and tunics and so on. Here's a middle image of spirits all over people who are doing happy hours. This is a spiritual environment of lower level. And I know it hurts a lot of feelings when I say this, but alcohol is not only a toxin and a class 1 carcinogen. It causes cancers. In the US alone, 70,000 cancers. And then we have like about 40,000 related alcohol deaths that it's counted that we know of. And people just drink because I want to go to my happy hour. There are other ways to relax and entertain ourselves. Alcohol, smoking of any kind, tobacco, marijuana, and there's lots of research that show negative effects. And remember, people still choose to go. There's anything wrong with going to a restaurant with your friends? No. But what kind of activities are we engaging? And we know every club and restaurant after a certain time, the environment shifts as well. But even in those places, you see the spirits. They're looking for a specific person who is there drinking, and their spirit obsessors there with them. So be mindful of what you consume in terms of our phones, but also what we consume in terms of substances, legal or illegal. And at the bottom here, you have an old style ambulance going in to respond to a scene. That's why it's important. We open the roads for the ambulance. We let them go, and we pray for those responders to be inspired by the physicians, the nurses, the technicians, the EMS in the spiritual realm to deliver the aid that is needed, as well as the police, right? Inside here with them is a spirit that has all these halos around her head. Is a very high elevated medical professional in there that will aid at the scene. So more than just feeling, like I see these days, a lot of people don't, even though here in the US is a law that you need to move over, a lot of people are, we're so immersed in our own anxiety and our own physical, have to get there, have to do this, have to do that, addiction to busyness, that we don't realize that when we give over, one day we might be the ones who are waiting for the ambulance, right? So we have to pray for them. We pray for the person in front of us driving. And here's another image from the book Life Goes On. This is a birth. And there is 4 incarnate people in this picture, in these images. This is all Projeto Imagem. There are depict pictures inspired in the books of André Luiz. Evelyn and Ernest are part of the family, and Mariana and Desiderio is being reborn as this child who Bridget and Amancio are going to adopt. So everything that happens in your life has a reason. And here you have the spirit, Brother Claudio, who is guiding all of them. And Evelyn and Ernest are going to be familiar spirits who dedicate their lives to ensure that this family unit, together with the other family unit, are more likely to go through the reincarnatory plan, like they're spiritual. They're not considered spirit mentors yet because no, they're not as elevated as the other ones, but they are committed to helping this family. So they're everywhere, friends. You go to the hospital, here's a good image, right? But if you go to the ICU, if you go to the ER, there are spirits in every hospital, work in a hospital, I feel them. They are of negative influence to those who are there ill. Especially I work in a military hospital. There's a lot of extra difficulties working with the military population based on the actions they did defending their country. So we have to think about it. The spirits are watching, they interfere. Of course, they're going to interfere in the mediumistic meetings. And here's another image. Sorry, we'll make it a little smaller here. Where you see spirits giving passes to a person who is about to discarnate, is convalescent. That's why it's important to let the natural course of disease go through. Because during those moments where you and I are afflicted, thinking about easing the pain of that discarnation, the spirit mentors are there, the technicians are there, they're helping with the detachment, they're helping with that person. Sometimes the last minutes is the minutes of lucidity. So the surroundings that we create for ourselves are going to impact ultimately the surroundings. The mediums can act, because when we go in the mission book Missionaries of the Light, this is very clear. There is a group of spirit incarnate beings who are trying and they can't get good communications. And then this mentor tells André Luiz what's going on with each one of them. One is drinking alcohol, the other one is cheating on the wife, the other one is using some sort of drug problem, and the other one is eating too much. So none of them are taking care of their physical, and they're unable to connect because their bodies are so busy, because you have to have some level of detachment, right? When you come to the meetings to meditate. So none of them are doing things in their daily lives that would make the environment appropriate for the communication with the good spirits. But the mentors are there. They're helping, they're inspiring, they live with us, and they also beautifully show how after a while, when they leave the center within 3 minutes, with the spirits who were inciting them to continue in the negative, unhealthy habits, retach, and they go on to just repeat everything until the next meeting. But they are everywhere. And of course, they're going to follow or avoid us. If we do the good, we attract the good ones and repel the next ones. And if we don't do the good, then we attract the ones who are not interested in the good. So that comes back to the topic of sympathy and empathy. So we are constantly attracting different things. What are you attracting? You're a magnet. Not only you are a vibrational being who is vibrating out of the universe with your thoughts, you're also attracting, right? What you send out is what comes back to you. So if I send hatred, I receive hatred. If I send anger, I receive anger. If I send goodness, I receive goodness. The Spirit will tell us. We are surrounded by those who have an affinity with our own spirit according to our advancement. So let's think about this. Someone like Chico Xavier and Divaldo have an affinity with higher order spirits to help them because they are more advanced in certain aspects than we are. They're also expunging things. Remember, Divaldo and Chico had diseases as well, or the physical body. So these are from previous lives. They're coming here showing to us that it's possible. It's possible, friends, to renounce what the world is asking us to do. What is the world asking us to do? Stay connected, because you have to know, you have to have notifications. Do as much as you can, because you're going to die anyways, right? Get as much activities and much experiences. This is all because we are numbing ourselves to the truth. If people think of themselves, you were born somewhere. The majority of spiritists in the US were born elsewhere. And God brings you to this place, and there is a spiritist group, and you know of spiritism. The writing is on the wall. You are to participate in the spiritist group. And yes, if you participate in the spiritist group and not in the Brazilian, for example, majority of spiritists here are Brazilians, not in the Brazilian community, you are going to have to give up some activities on a Sunday, some activities on a Saturday. You're going to have to volunteer. While your friends may think you're strange, you are co-creating the good. But if we are just the fish swimming in the ocean, we don't know what water is. We don't know that we are doing exactly what everybody else is doing around us. When is God going to give us more to be here and be able to be part of a movement that is still nascent in the United States? Very few groups have reached 15, 20 years, 40 years, and a lot of them are still in Portuguese. So if you have a spiritist group who is doing the work in English, you must participate in your capacity. And yes, you're going to have to renounce the joys of the physical in order to do the spiritual. Types of meetings, serious or frivolous. So first talking about frivolous meetings. What kind of spirits will be present in each? I think we're talking about the magnet. So if you're meeting for the serious, then the serious spirits will come around us. But if we're meeting for frivolous reasons, then the frivolous spirits will around us. And the spirits will tell us in item 232, every time persons meet there is amongst them a concealed assembly of spirits who sympathize with their good qualities or imperfections, aside from all thoughts of evocation. So let's stop here. Because maybe we are serious and we are evoking, I don't know, Peter, Saint Peter, come talk to us, or Bezerra de Menezes, or Joana de Anjos, or whoever. But if we are sympathizing with spirits of a lower order, how are we going to evocate someone higher and expect them to be there? Now, suppose there's a possibility of these persons in the meetings to communicate with beings from the invisible world. So if the serious meetings have mediums in them, which is likely, which spirits respond to their call? Obviously, the ones who are already there. So if we are in a meeting and all we're worried about is getting more of a club aspect. We're there for the party, we're there for the food, we're there to get together, because we all are. But we have to think about the real needs of studying and doing things for the good. The spirits are already there and you're ready to communicate, they will say first, because we sympathize with them first. Then later comes the good spirits who are dictating our meetings as well. In serious meetings, the spirits will tell us serious meaning is not sufficient for receiving elevated communications. We can meet and pray that Jesus speak to us. Mary comes, Joana de Angelis, right? They all come talk to us. But that's not enough for us to receive elevated communication. And of course, I'm giving examples that are higher. But we are talking about elevated communications from the spirit mentors of the group, or the heads of the spirits who help. More than anything else, it is the heart that attracts good spirits. So what kind of heart measures are we bringing to the spiritist meetings? If we only go to the spiritist meeting with, so I want to increase my business, I want to meet others who are the same, I want to sell my whatever, then it's hard attracting the right things. Of course, we go to the meetings and eventually we get to know each other. Eventually, friendships might develop. but why am I going there? What is my heart attracting? Is my heart attracting power? Is my heart attracting things that are not elevated? It says, no moral condition impedes spiritual communications, but if our moral conditions are bad, we'll communicate to those who are similar to us. So someone who has a moral condition of, I don't know, Hitler, Mussolini, we talk about any dictator in the world, right? In China, there's a couple of them, who are only thinking of themselves and subjecting the people who they're leading into difficult conditions, as South Korea, for example. So, or some other, I'm not picking on anybody specifically, but some other places where the leaders are really only helping half of the population and oppressing the other half, and there's civil wars, and they're only thinking about enriching themselves, then they are communicating with spirits that are similar to them. We can't think that Jesus is not whispering in the ear of those leaders, because he is sending his messengers as warning, as waiting for those breaks. But those folks, and I'll bring it back to our lives, if we are moral conditions that are not ideal, the spirits around us are of low morally involvement. If the leader of your city, the mayor, the state governor is of poor moral quality, the spirits around them are going to be of moral quality. Even though there's a higher order spirits taking care of the state, they are not going to supersede also our free will, right? We'll let people make their choices. They will warn us, they will inspire us, but then ultimately we have to make a decision. Influence of the surroundings, of the nature of an intelligent manifestation. So in sum, the Spirit says the conditions of the surroundings will be better as there is greater moral homogeneity for the good, pure and more elevated sentiments. It's more sincere desire to learn without preconceived ideas. So it's simple. So if you want to receive elevated communications, you need to create a surrounding with moral homogeneity for the good. So the group of spirit incarnate beings around you are trying there to do the good. We're not just going there to receive, which we all do receive when we go there. Pure and more elevated sentiments. Spirit's book, around question 100, go to the section of good spirits. We are, majority of us, still imperfect. Go to the good spirit section, because the pure spirits, we didn't even get a description, because it's a little way beyond what we can do on the earth. Those are pure, more elevated. Humility, charity, understanding, empathy, serving. Because a lot of us come to the spirit's group to receive, but we're there to serve. We receive, but we also serve. We receive more when we serve. More sincere desire to learn without preconceived ideas. So even if you were raised on a different religions, just like I was, we go and study the books of Kardec, and we learn again what we needed to learn. And those teachings will be with us when we pass to the spiritual realm, because in the spiritual realm, we do not have these books readily available. Like I can go to the library and pick a bunch of books. But in the spiritual realm, I have to have merit. And merit comes from service. And service comes from doing good to others, forgetting of myself and doing good to others. And teach the ones around me that that's the way to go. And we need more and more and more images. We need to elevate those who do the good for others in order to just elevating those who are living a creative life on social media that encourages a lot of selfish decisions. So do we want to be on this surrounding? So what kind of homogeneity for the good, pure, more elevated sentiments, a desire to learn this group is displaying versus this group, right? If we are in this group, and this could be anything that is just physical. We just go there, we have a soccer match and barbecue. We have parties and we go and smoke marijuana, because I have known a lot of people who do that. If we're just indulging in the physical senses each and every day, all we want to do is enjoy, we are going to have a harder time reaching the image we see in the left side, which is the image you want. You greater moral homogeneity for the good, pure and more elevated sentiments. So dear friends, here we are. We come to conclusion of chapter 21 of part 2 and the second part of this medium's book. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you can share this with someone. It might be beneficial to their journey as they educate their mediumship, as they are part of a group of spiritists who are developing their abilities and the capabilities of serving the good and serving the good in both realms of life. And stick around. Next week, you have a different host with mediumship and animals. And until then, stay well, stay safe, and I hope to see you soon. Take care, friends.